Today, we're going to get into how to do the easiest 24-hour fasting of all time. People that don't actually make the change that they keep talking about, in my opinion, that's the definition of a coward. I want you to understand that fasting is not a fad. You're fatter than you want to be. It's just a fact. Welcome to the single-digit body fat series.
Strength is never weakness, weakness is never strength.
Figure out a way to just be less fat. And you know what that means.
What in the will happen if I go all in on this? Today I'm going to tell you how to get ridiculously shredded. Welcome to the single digit body fat series, everybody. About to throw on my weighted vest, go on a walk, and tell you a little story. Roll up my sleeves, get as much skin exposed to the sun as we can while we're out here. One of the easiest things you can do to make your metabolism a little bit better is to just get some sunlight. Do your best to get outside every day. By the way, for those of you that are fat, welcome to fat season. It's here. It's no longer 70, 80, 90, 100 degrees anymore, right? It's a lot cooler outside. For those of you that are fat, this is your time of year to get outside and start walking. You got less excuses. Anyway, welcome to the single digit body fat series. I'm Mark Smelly Bell. I'm on steroids. I've been on them for a long time, probably be on and off them the rest of my life, as I stated in the film, Bigger, Stronger, Faster. Today, we're going to get into talking about how to do the easiest 24-hour fasting of all time. How to make fasting for 24 hours easy. I know a lot of you have probably tried fasting. Some of you may not like it. Some of you may enjoy it. And some of you might say, fuck, I haven't done it in a long time. My main advice here today is do your best to not get too much distance from fasting, because I think fasting can be an excellent tool. When we look at fasting and we think about what it's doing, we can argue that you might burn a little bit more fat because you're fasting, or we can just say, hey, you're eating less calories. We can kind of come to all these different conclusions. We can look at all this different science and all these different things. But if we're being reasonable, we should understand that most of us have gotten into a habit of eating too much. So now we have to course correct that, and we have to figure out a way to eat too little for a little while. I actually think in general, I think the amount that we eat has just gotten to be out of hand. I think, the 3 square meals a day that people used to do, I think at some point that probably made a lot of sense. But the 3 meals a day turned into like 3 meals a day with some snacks. And it just kind of exploded from there. And people started getting in a habit of eating from the time they're awake all the way until the time they went to bed. Then some people got this idea down the road about intermittent fasting, 16-8. You may have heard of it. Some people started becoming obsessed with how long you fast, 16 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, so on. But what I noticed in a lot of the people that were doing the 16-8 protocol, and even myself included, I would get to those 16 hours and then I would just engorge myself and I would overeat. I would eat like 2 or 3 meals in a row, and I would be the same weight. Like, it didn't work in terms of weight loss. And remember, this is the single digit body fat series. And so what we're talking about here might not always be the same thing that everybody else might be talking about, because we're kind of after the extremes here. So I would say, with the way that I figured things out for 24-hour fast, and I'm not saying I'm the only one who's figured it out. You guys are probably going to be like, oh, Jason so-and-so figured this out. I was like, okay, fine. I'm just saying that I think this is a good idea. Maybe somebody else has discovered it too. But you just may have never thought of it this way. So you want to sneak in some 24-hour fasts with having it be barely noticeable without it being like super annoying. Just eat at like 12, 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then don't eat again until around that same time the next day. And that's 24 hours. Let's talk about some advantages of it. First of all, you're starting to eat in a little bit of circadian rhythm. The sun is out. You got UVA, UVB. You got a lot of the rays of the sun all coming out between some of those hours that I mentioned, between 12 and 2. And some people believe that you get a little bit better effect that when you eat in accordance to the sun. I actually believe there's some studies on this, and you can look up some of this circadian biology, and you can think about it in whatever way you feel is useful for you. But yeah, look into it because there's some compelling information on it. How big of a difference it'll make, I don't know, but it seems like a good idea. Secondly, but probably more importantly, and this is anecdotal, and I believe some people have researched this as well, but I have talked to many, many people that believe you're way better off not eating a few hours before you go to bed. I know for myself personally, I sleep way better. People have also mentioned well improved HRV. Their HRV, their heart rate variability, will be way higher when they discontinue eating earlier in the day and have several hours of digestion. There's now people that believe that dementia, my friend Carl Lenore, Superhuman Radio, had a guest on his show saying that he feels dementia can be reversed, wild claim, reversed by simply eating early in the day and discontinuing eating several hours before bed. And there may be several reasons for it, but look, man, if we can fix our sleep, if we can sleep better, that's a huge win, because now if you're running, lifting, trying to have better body fat, all of those things improve. Your recovery for everything improves. Whether you're an MMA fighter, a skateboarder, a skier, no matter what you do, if your sleep gets better, you have better quality sleep, everything else gets improved. And I think it's agreeable amongst most people that if we don't eat too heavy a meal several hours before bed, that we're gonna have better sleeping results. So that's huge. That in and of itself might be the powerhouse of this whole thing. There's, getting off track with fasting happens so easily because there's so many influences and so many things that can kind of throw us off. So personally, I like to try to use stuff to sort of get in the way of my fast. Sometimes it's my job. Sometimes it's an appointment. Sometimes it could be a dental appointment. It could be a meeting. It could be whatever. Let's say I know I'm going to lift at 9, then I have a meeting at 11, right? And I'll look at some of that and I'll say, you know what? I'm just going to eat after that. That's where I'm going to eat. That's going to be my time frame to eat. I'm going to have a short eating window, and then I'm going to go right back into my fast. Or on days where maybe I podcast and then film some stuff for YouTube, I may only eat breakfast on that day. Or I may choose to eat when I get home, which might be a little later than what I'm sharing with you today, but it might be 3 or 4 p.m., still plenty early enough to get the food digested before I go to bed and so on. Oh, we got a car coming. Let's go over here. Whoops. There's a lot of different ways to fast, but personally I found that having distractions, having a busy day can sometimes be awesome. If your day doesn't look very busy, maybe try to make it a little bit busy. Try to think, okay, I'm going to go on an hour walk, half-hour walk. I'm going to lift for an hour, half hour. It's like there's some time that you're spending where you're not eating. Then maybe you're going to go, do some other activity. But sometimes it's hard to think of activities that you're going to do that don't involve food. And this is where things can get a little difficult, a little bit tricky. You're going to go to a movie. Like, how many times have you gone to the movie theater without eating anything while you're at the movies, right? But when it comes to this 24-hour fast idea that I'm sharing with you, I want you to think about it like this. There's only like kind of 2 times in the day that will sort of mess with you. And that nighttime period is going to be the most detrimental period to almost every single person's diet. I've said it before, if Chris Henson walked into people's homes at 7, 8, 9 p.m. and saw them at the dinner table, it wouldn't be as shocking at what he was discovering, which was people doing the most heinous crimes of all time with pedophiles, right? But what he would be doing is he would see people cheating on themselves, people cheating on their diet, people cheating on the promises they made to themselves the day before, and the day before that. Remember, cowards talk about what they'll never do. People that don't actually make the change that they keep talking about, in my opinion, that's the definition of a coward. They're scared of something and they're allowing that to block them, and they're not making the change that they need. don't want to get splattered. So in order to make that change, we're going to have to figure out some strategies. And one of the strategies is fasting. So this 24-hour fast, just by simply fasting at around 12, 1, or 2, whatever time you pick, is critical. But I would just say try to do it several hours. Have your food you're eating be done several hours before you go to bed. And when we fast in this way, let's talk a little bit about the eating window for a moment. So we got to look at that a little bit, right? So let's say you fast, from 1 p.m. until 1 p.m. 1 p.m. in the afternoon and 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Well, let's say you eat at 1, you have a nice meal, you have some good food, and then you eat a little bit of something again at like 3. That's the way that I would manage it. That's the way that I tend to do it. And so now we have to go from the last bite that you had, the last meal that you had, and that's where our 24-hour clock starts. So you kind of see what I'm saying? So the earlier that you start it, the earlier you can shut it down. And I don't think it's a good idea for everyone to get in a habit of only eating like 1 meal a day. I think if we just eat 1 meal a day, we're not going to be able to really absorb the nutrients that we need. I know there's some science and some information saying, look, we can knock out pretty much all our protein in 1 meal. And there's some compelling evidence of that and so on. But I think that let's look at it a little bit more reasonable. So open that eating window up a bit. It could be like 3 or 4 hours, right? But this idea of having an eating window that's 8 hours long, an 8-hour long eating window for somebody who's had trouble with their diet, it's just going to take way too long, right? It's just going to be way too long of eating. For most of us, we're like, all right, I can hammer down a lot of food in 6 hours or 8 hours. So just keep it to like 2 or 4. I think it's way more reasonable. Also, we don't want to be like hyperventilating and racing through our food. We want to chew our food. We want to take our time. Do your best to not eat your food standing up in the kitchen like I do. I do that a lot. It's a bad habit. Make your food, sit down, calm yourself down a little bit, and then eat. We know that even when we have one bad night of sleep and our heart rate's thrown off a little bit, our HRV is a little bit off, we know that stress of having a poor night of sleep throws off the way that we digest our foods. It throws off our glucose levels, throws off the way the insulin works. It throws off a way a lot of our hormones in the body are reacting to our food. So if you come home from work and you're like, oh, I'm starving, and you're mixing up food and you're doing this and doing that and you're shoving food in your face while you're kind of hypoxic, you're not breathing well, your heart rate is 80, 90, 100 because you're racing around the kitchen and stuff, right? We need to kind of, I need to do a better job. I'll promise to do a better job. You guys promise to do a better job. But look, man, 2025 is coming. And Americans, I'm sick and tired of hearing about how unhealthy Americans are. I don't know about you guys, but like, I'm starting to get a little offended by that. I'm a little prideful. I'm a little patriotic. And I think like we can pull our shit together. We can do a better job. We need to grab each other by the wrist, grab each other by the hand and pull each other into stronger, better positions and teach each other about nutrition. Now I know, not everyone's going to want to fast, but I have personally found this to be one of the easiest ways to get things done. In having Kyle Newell on the podcast about 6 or 8 months ago on Mark Bell's Power Project, it was great hearing some of his advice. The cool thing is that Kyle, along with a bunch of other friends of mine that I know that use some fasting, they're not really on a super strict diet. Now Kyle eats beef, he eats grass-fed beef, he eats eggs, eats pretty damn clean, but he's not afraid to throw down a burrito. He's not afraid to eat some Chinese food with his family. He's not afraid to eat some ice cream. It's because he doesn't mind doing a little bit longer fasts. Look, we got this gravel road right here. We're out here in the middle of the country, middle of nowhere. And this is where it stops right here. The pavement just stops right here. They're like, we don't know how long this road goes on for, so like we're just gonna stop paving it and use something cheaper, use some gravel. That's what happens when you're in the middle of nowhere, like I am. But I am a person that likes to try to squeeze the most out of everything I can when it comes to performance enhancement. That's why I'm walking with a wet vest right now that's 40 pounds. That's why you see me running and sprinting with weighted vests. That's why you've always seen me with like little gadgets and little things. And I know that sometimes people are thinking it's like just a gimmick or a fad thing that I'm doing. But if you look at the history of what I've been doing, none of it's actually a fad. It's all been here to stay. I taught you guys about powerlifting. Powerlifting is here to stay. Strength is never a weakness, and weakness is never strength. And I'll prove it to you when I go and run on the track and do a 400 meter in under a minute and 15 seconds. You guys will actually get to see that. Now that ain't fast, that ain't world class, but that ain't half bad for a guy that went from powerlifter to sprinter sort of out of nowhere. Went from powerlifter to bodybuilder to long distance runner. Sucked at a lot of those things, but was pretty good at powerlifting. And then I'm going to show you that because I've stayed strong, and I want to show you and prove more so to myself than to you guys, prove to myself that a lot of the stuff I've been doing means something, and it actually registers as something. It's going to turn into something, and it's going to be something we're going to be able to measure. And you'll see when I do that 115 that I'm probably going to be 8% body fat. I might be there-ish now. I don't really know. I haven't got my body fat tested. And so I think part of the single digit body fat series is I better go get tested, right? And then if I'm like 11%, I'm off the team. We got to cancel the whole concept. So I don't know where that will leave us. But anyway, I got to go get it tested, go get it measured. You shouldn't be afraid to test, and you shouldn't be afraid to measure. Sometimes people are very scared and nervous about weighing themselves before they start a diet. Sometimes people are very scared or nervous on sort of testing their squat, bench, or deadlift because they're worried about where they are currently. But there's nothing to be fearful about that. That's just where you are for now. And keep in mind, when I started my long distance running, I couldn't run a long distance at all. I couldn't even run a distance that somebody else would say, hey, that's pretty long. Like I wouldn't be able to run a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. None of that was possible when I first started. So where you start is not going to be where you end up. But a bunch of other stuff that I've communicated to you guys that became a thing that aren't a fad is also keto or meat and fruit. You hear that talked about a lot. The carnivore diet. These are all things that I didn't invent or create. I just have loved them and utilized them, and even fasting. And now you hear me talking about the sun. A lot of these things, they're not my creation. They're not things that I, sort of pulled out of thin air. Nasal breathing. Like, wait do you see? Wait do you guys see? I'm so excited for you guys to see some of what's coming down the pipeline with more cool information about CO2. But anyway, let me get back to the fasting because I think it's critical. But I just wanted to say that because I want you to understand that fasting is not a fad. It's something that can be really useful for a lot of folks. For some of you that have fasted in the past and you're kind of on the bubble and you're like, I didn't like it. I got a little too wiry. My girlfriend was like, hey, you lost some of your junk in the trunk. I want you to get back. I want you to get back your fasting. I want you to get back to it. I want you to get back to your intuition, your gut feeling of some fasting. Now, this 24-hour fast is the easiest fast that you'll ever do, where you fast a little bit more like midday, early evening cutoff point. This is going to be easier than what you've done before. And I would suggest and recommend that you don't do it every single day. So you either do like a 5-2, like Monday through Friday, take Saturday, Sunday off, or you do EOD. You do it every other day. Kind of pick one of those two, okay? You could even take off hump day if you wanted to. You can go Monday, Tuesday, hump days off, Thursday, Friday, and then, whatever you want for the weekend type deal. But that's the way that I would suggest managing it. Because if we just, now, if you're a larger guy or girl, and you're trying to take off 80, 90, 100, 150 pounds, then you might want to entertain doing this every day for a while. You might want to run the same play every day for a while. But in the beginning, why not just try about 5 days a week, 4 to 5 days a week, give it a shot for that amount of time. One requirement I have of you is to hit a good amount of protein. What's a good amount of protein? Well, 1 gram per pound of body weight or 0.75 is going to be fine in terms of protein. I'm a huge proponent of keto style dieting and low carb. And let me just tell you, I think that the impact and the effects of fasting are exacerbated, multiplied by 10 when you're living a little bit of a keto lifestyle. Because, and I don't know why no one ever puts it this way, because I ain't that smart. At least I don't think I'm that smart, but maybe I am. Maybe I'm a genius. But fasting represents keto, and keto represents fasting. That's what makes them both so beneficial. That's what makes them both so great. That's why they can both work so well. Now, I would also say, you can get into the keto strips, peeing on the strips and peeing purple and everything, or you could prick your finger and see your keto millimolars and stuff. But you could just be like me and you can ride dirty and not ever test any of that, because I just don't think that matters that much. In this case, when we're trying to lose weight, trying to lose body fat, what's going to matter the most is the mirror, the scale, and maybe a waist measurement. Scale, and some visual. Even going beyond and above and beyond, and no one really mentions this all that often, although there are coaches that people check in with, video over pictures. The video could be private, it could just be for you. It's just like you just kind of checking out your chub level. You set a camera up somewhere, hit the record, and just turn around and like see all the various parts of your body, your weaknesses, your strengths, and so on, and have that be how you stack up. You can also get body fat tests done, which is a good idea, especially if you do it, every maybe 6 months or so. Should see a really good progression along with a lifting program. So I believe that not necessarily keto, where you're eating 1 gram of fat per every gram of protein, which is something I did for years, and I've always liked that a lot. That kind of basically gets you into nutritional ketosis, probably the best way. But I do things slightly differently now. You've heard me kind of share this idea of jacking up your protein more. Now, here we go, with the gluconeogenesis people, right? Where when you start to spike that protein up a little bit higher, people believe that your body is now going to kind of produce more blood sugar from the protein that maybe is in potential like excess. But according to the information I have, which I could be wrong, is that this is more demand driven than it is driven by the amount of protein that you consume. So if your body needs glucose, it will make it from the amino acids if need be and when need be. But it's not going to just do it for no reason. Again, that's my understanding of it. Also, I just have found that some of this shit doesn't fucking matter that much. We tend to get distracted and start talking about a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter. You're fat, or you're fatter than you want to be. Even if you're 12% body fat and you're trying to get down to 8, you're fatter than you want to be. I'm not trying to give you a complex, or I'm not trying to, it's just a fact, right? You're trying to lose body fat. And there ain't nothing wrong with wanting to lose more body fat, even when you're already lean. Someone be like, you're shredded, I don't get it. Why do you want to go to 8 to 7? Well, sometimes you just want more, right? Sometimes you're excited by that. Sometimes that just happens to be your thing, and that's what you want to turn this into. So let's make sure that we get a gram per pound of body weight in protein, or 0.75. If you're obese and you're 400 pounds and you're listening to this, I don't think I've really ever heard anyone say that someone actually really needs more than like 250 or 300 grams of protein, no matter how big they are. I just personally have never heard anyone say like, oh yeah, you weigh 400, you need 550 grams of protein. I just have never heard anyone really say that. There could be some truth to it, in the sense that protein can drive down your hunger signals. I do want to bring up the point of protein leveraging. sometimes we get into these topics and it's like, well, I got to eat something. I personally don't want to eat a lot of carbs. And if I don't want to necessarily eat tons of fat either. So I'm pretty much left with eating protein and fats. The fats will be kept in check in some sort of modest fashion. For me, anywhere typically between 70 to 100. If I want a more shreddy poo day, it might be half of that. It might be 35 to 50, somewhere in that range. And again, I won't do that every single day. I won't do it day in, day out. But if I wanted really good results, I might do it for 5 days or 7 days at a time and then bring some of the fats back in and so on. But the basics of this is you're trying to have a short fasting window. That's 2 to maybe 4 hours, maybe 5. But your eating window isn't like an onslaught of you eating for 2 to 5 hours, because that'll just be way too long. For some of you guys and girls out there that can really eat and hammer down some food, it's gonna be way too long a time. You're gonna still exceed the amount of food that you need. So I have found this particular way of eating to be super easy, super comfortable. Even with this style of fasting, you could also fast away from fats. So the 1 or 2 meals that you eat, you could have some chicken breast and some Piedmontese lean ground beef or fairly lean steak, and only get in like 16 to 20 grams of fat, maybe 30 grams of fat total for the day, along with your protein shake or whatever else you might have had, some cottage cheese or yogurt, whatever it might be. And that is amazing in and of itself, because that will help you burn more. Remember, if you want to burn fat, take out carbs. You want to burn body fat, take out carbs and dietary fats, and you'll be burning body fat. Now, it ain't always that simple, and there is a calorie equation, that gets thrown into the mix as well. But if you can remember that, that's an important thing to keep in mind in your quest to getting down to 8%. For me personally, this is what I found to be the best way to implement fasting. It's gonna be something I'm gonna continue to do moving forward, because if I'm gonna eat 1,500 to 1,000 calories in my diet, it's gonna happen probably from around the time of 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. That's where I'm gonna eat most of my calories. Got home from a day of work, some people would say a long day of work, and they feel stressed and whatever, and then they eat something that, I don't know, maybe they heat up something that was left over from last night, and then they're cooking something at the same time. You just start rifling through. You're eating stuff out of the pantry. I think it's common for people to say, oh, my kids, and they buy all this crap for their kids, and they eat half of the crap for the kids, or they're prepping stuff for the kids for the next day, and they're prepping stuff for kids for the next day. They're shoving it into a bag and also eating it at the same time. You make a kid a sandwich, you make your own self a sandwich. I mean, the list of things go on and on and on and on. And when you should have had a really nice meal at 5 p.m. that was 700 calories and it was rich in protein and fats and had a lot of great things to it. Maybe there were some potatoes or rice in there as well. Super nutritious, super delicious. And then maybe even after that, you finish it off with like a couple scoops of ice cream or something like that. We just need to stop a lot of this madness, because you know that it's not going to go down like that. So don't pretend. There's no more pretending anymore. You know that you suck at that time of day, so let's just start to chop it out. So there's 2 times that are going to be kind of tough for you. It's going to be that time when it's snuggly wuggly time with your significant other on the couch and you're trying to watch some Netflix. That's going to be tough, because maybe you guys are both used to having this or that or whatever it might be. You can cut that out. You can try to move that fasting window around that a little bit more. You could see if your significant other wants to get dragged in to some of this fasting with you. Or you can just be on your own sometimes. Like, it's not a big deal. You're not missing out. They're not missing out. Yes, it's a wonderful thing to experience things together. And when you make it a point to go out to eat to dinner at night and it's 7:30 or 8 p.m., that's not the right time to implement your fast, right? Enjoy things together, very important. Enjoy things with your family and so on. And some of you right now are already making excuses, and that's the first sign that you need to really do something. If you've been listening to this and you've been throwing in the yeah buts, for every yeah but you did, that's an extra vote towards you having to do this. The things that you think you can't do, those are the things that you must do. The things that you don't think are for you, that you're the most turned off by a lot of times, and you're like, that's not for me because of, and then insert excuse, that means that this is absolutely perfect for you. This can be so beneficial for you, and I'd love to see a bunch of you people try it. In terms of the types of foods, again, I did say that I like keto. I think keto style dieting or low carb, I think goes along with fasting really well. However, there's a lot of other ways to do this. You can be on a bodybuilding style diet and incorporate and implement some of these things that I just shared today for the easiest 24-hour fast that you're ever gonna do. I'm pretty sure I covered fucking everything on that. So if you're still fat after this video, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I did everything and anything I could to try to help you. It is fat season, it's fat guy season, it's time to get outside, but it's also fat guy season in a sense of like, as soon as Halloween hits, shit starts to slide downhill, those candies come out, and then before you know it, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, and you gained another 5 pounds, and so on, and things get worse and worse. New year, new you, never happens, and you just keep getting fatter and fatter and fatter until you end up looking like a blimp, and that's not a good look. So try some of this fasting that I mentioned. I know it will be useful and helpful for you guys. In the comments below, hit me with a bunch of questions. I'll answer them, and maybe I'll shoot a video about it. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.